Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being on the call, for registering for our Conversation Cafe event. I am elated that you have taken some time from your lunch, maybe breakfast, depending on what part of the world you are in, to join us for an hour of just reflecting on key things that impact our local congregations. Let me introduce myself. My name is Reverend Derek Perkins. I currently serve as the Director for Congregational Vitality and Innovation for Disciples Home Mission and Merger Staff for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. I come to this role after serving about 17 and a half, almost 18 years as senior pastor of Centennial Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in the city of St. Louis. But prior to that, I had the privilege of running children and youth programs for the Children's Defense Fund here in St. Louis and also working in education. And so I hope to bring all of my passion to this work that I have been so gifted to do. I've done most of my work in the area of education and social services, and also went to seminary at a UCC seminary here in St. Louis, Eden Theological Seminary. So I bring some of all of that to the table here. I want to say thank you to one of my colleagues, Reverend Dr. Aaron Cash, who is going to monitor the chat function for us today. We have the privilege of being in full partnership, DHM and LTS, on the Thriving Congregations program, Lexington Theological Seminary. And I have the privilege of working with her to facilitate the various cohorts that are part of that program. And so thank you, Aaron, for being present here today, but more importantly, for your ongoing partnership and the work that we do for congregations across our beloved church. I want to also thank our guests who are here today. We have some friends and some colleagues in ministry that have joined us for our discussion from Washington University, the Center for Community Health Partnership, and Centennial Christian Church in St. Louis. I will introduce them a little bit later in our conversation. I want to also say thanks again to Reverend Chris Dorsey. He is the president of Disciples Home Missions, and he's my boss. And I have the privilege of serving with Disciples Home Missions of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, to do the work that God has called us to do in the areas of congregational vitality and innovation. And then last but not least, I want to say thank you to all of you for sharing your day with us. I am sure you all are busy with Advent preparations, Christmas, family time, and more. And so for you to take out some time to have a little bit of engagement with me is greatly appreciated. Want to share the purpose of Conversation Cafe. It's more of a cafe. We often offer menu items for people to consider and think about, but it is a platform that is designed to bring clergy and lay people together in one place at one time to engage conversations that impact their local congregation. So, with that in mind, I want to set some ground rules for our conversation today. First of all, clergy and laity, we come as equals and we come as equal partners for the work that God is calling us to do. So in this space, we come as equal partners. Number two, we ask that you again will silence your background so that it can be a meaningful experience for all. Number three, if you are given a chance to speak, be mindful. We only have about an hour and a few minutes after that to reflect. So I encourage you to please be brief if you're speaking, but use the chat function as much as possible. We only have 1 hour of time to share. Final thing I want to share, this is not a place to be fixing one another, saving, advising, correcting, but simply sharing resources so that we can improve our ministries across the life of our church. So I have three objectives today. Number one, to explore the importance of congregational knowing, understanding, engagement, and encouraging one to fully immerse oneself in your local context. That's number one. Number two, explore practical research methods and strategies that congregations can use to become effective witnesses, neighbors, partners, and champions for social change. Number three, to encourage congregational self reflection on congregational identity and future ministry possibilities. So that's why we're here. We're here to talk about the importance of our church engaging our local communities, exploring strategies and methods that a church can use to get to know your neighbors, to understand their needs. And I would also argue to shape the way you do mission so that the ministry is relevant and impactful for those that's situated in the communities around you. And then I hope to have you begin a deep process of self reflection. We're going into a new year, new opportunities. This is a great time for us to keep reimagining what God is calling us to do. So I want to begin with those things in mind. And I want to lift up some scripture to ground our conversation here today. Two scriptures. Number one, the first one is from the Old Testament, Jeremiah 29:7. The scripture says, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. In Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of the sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So I want us to begin by thinking about who our congregation is. Like, how do we describe our congregation in one or two words? As an example, we are a blank, blank congregation. Can you guys share with me how you describe your congregation? You can put, let's use the chat function and just run them there. And I'll try to lift up some of them. I want to know what are the characteristics of your congregation? Just maybe two words to describe who you are. And if there's someone who wants to unmute and say it aloud, feel free to do that. We are mission focused. We're a mission focused congregation. Anybody want to say it out loud? You can just unmute. Progressive and justice oriented. Thank you. Once I start sharing the screen, I won't be able to see, and Aaron will assist me then. Go ahead. How do you describe your congregation in one or two words? Older but steady. Thanks. Intergenerational. Sometimes that's more of an aspiration than a reality. Thank you. Inquisitive and active. Purple and caring. Caring and engaged. Mission and ministry oriented. Lay led. Meaning some of the needs of the community. All right. So when caring and welcoming. So when we think about who we are, I think it's important for us to not only name, live in diversity, who we are, but also be honest about if these are aspirational for us. Okay. I want to share some characteristics from a few scholars that I have been reading over these last few months doing the work that I do. I want to share some of their thoughts of how they describe congregations. Okay. All right. One of the partners that I work with, Aaron Cash, also one of my colleagues, Corey Wilcoxon, They describe congregations as thriving congregations. Those churches that are rooted in scripture, know and engage their mission and vision, understand community and rest, reject fear, collaborative, they're generous, flexible, willing to take risks, they're forward thinkers, they refuse to be stagnant. So some of us are a part of thriving congregations, right? And then there are those of us who are hoping that we will become a thriving congregation in our community. I want to share something from Douglas Poe. He quotes a statement from Howard Thurman, from Howard Thurman, and he writes in his book called The Depth Church, Navigating Between a Rock and a Hard Place. Douglas Poe, not only is an author, but he's the president of Philip Theological Seminary. He refers to some congregations as a swamp congregation. And that comes from the statement that Thurman defines a swamp as a place that hoards, is friendless, and more. But Poe looks at congregations in the same way. He says it's inwardly focused, is where things decay. It hoards and stashes and keeps and guards so that no one else can take things. It's unwilling to let anything go. It guards what they have because they fear that letting go of anything will hasten to their demise. So unfortunately, there are times when all of our congregations have been a swamp congregation, right? We want to just hold on to everything. Then there's the reservoir congregation. That's the place that has resources. It focuses on providing material resources to those in need in the community, like food and clothes and warm beds, cooling centers. It seeks to connect with the outside world. They are not entirely inward focused. However, they rarely meet people who are not in their programs. These congregations may pray with the people they help, but the goal is not to help them become disciples. So I would like to say that they're somewhat like a social service agency, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's clear. It needs to be clear when we become a reservoir congregation. Keep doing all those amazing things, but be mindful that there are times where we might need to invite people into deeper relationship with faith. He also describes a canal congregation in this adept book, and that is a congregation that knows its transforming power. It seeks to touch others in community. It realizes that discipleship may not happen inside of the church building. It meets people where they are. A canal congregation is always looking outside of itself rather than simply trying to attract people to come to it. The fundamental purpose is relational. That's in Poe's book, the Adept book, Navigating Between a Rock and a Hard Place. I want to share one more characteristic, and it comes from the Formative Power book by Christina Jones Davis and Tim Shapiro. They refer to churches as formative power congregations. And I really love this aspect because in their book, they highlight those churches as those who believe, whose identity and activity shape and form individuals who comprise it. In other words, they help their members with human development, right? These congregations develop their members by impacting their lives and their growth. And so when we think about engaging the community, right, and thinking about research strategies, we have to be really clear about who we are because our neighbors are concerned about who we are. If you haven't seen the latest data around relationship building and trust between congregations and community, you will discover that people are concerned about who the church is today, what the church is about, and the big question is, can they trust the church? And so I think for us to build those relationships, to engage community in the way that we want, we must know who we are, who we say we are. We must live into who we are, but we must also understand how our neighbors perceive us. How do your neighbors perceive your church? You all gave us a long listing of things about who you are. What do your neighbors have to say about you and your church? What's your church reputation? Now, I cannot see your chats now, and Aaron will assist me to uplift some of those. What do your neighbors say about your church?
that we are generous.
Okay.
I'm reading from the chat, by the way.
Hmm.
That we care about our community and we show it.
Okay. Are there more coming in?
Not yet. Oh, there's one. Many express gratitude for our food pantry and other programs.
Okay. You're willing to serve people. Yeah. Anyone want to speak out loud? Just keep it brief.
I think what other churches see what we're doing, they invite us to their church to do the same thing because a lot of times they don't have what we're doing.
Okay. So community partnerships and collaboration
Right.
with other faith groups. That's important as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into some of the research strategies.
From the chat, open and affirming for all, kind and generous, engaged in the community.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So who we say we are versus how our community perceive us is important. That helps us to think about relationships, trust in relationships, and more. I want to share just a little bit of data. When congregations and community trust one another, positive things happen, of course, right? Barna, the Pew Research says that people believe that the church can bring folks together and create and strengthen community bonds, play a role in helping the poor and needy, protect and strengthen morality and society. However, there's some negative things that I think is rooted in trust or the lack of trust as it relates to community relationships with the church. Some are too concerned with money and power. Some are focused on rules, and I think there's some scriptures that speaks to that in our sacred text. And some are too involved in some way in politics, and of course, that's up for debate, right? About what we feel God is calling our church to be. Uh, 36% of churches and the adults that attend those are motivated to engage in justices in the community. So there are people who say, I want to be a part of the church because the church is engaging in justices. And then there are those who, churches and members who want to be part of organizations that address local issues, issues like education, issues in terms of senior housing, issues for adult education, right? Nearly 2 in 5 urban churches attendees say that they want to be a part of a church that is doing something to impact the world. And that also goes for rural churches as well. In fact, some of the data states that rural churches are often involved in major ways in civic life, offering their space for meetings, community meetings, forums, town halls, and candidate gatherings where people can meet their candidates. And so when we think about all of that, and we think about the ways in which the church and the community engages one another, there must be some kind of benefit, right? There must be a benefit for the community. It must be a benefit for the local church. What are some of those benefits for your congregation when you engage your community? What are some benefits? Type those in the chat or unmute and speak. What are some of those benefits?
I think meeting people where they are and helping them.
Okay, thank you.
I think when it's like that, your community will share more information and you'll find out that they need resources that they don't have, but there are some resources in the community. So
So
they talk more.
they'll talk more and share more about what's
Share
there and
more.
what's not there.
Yeah.
What else?
From the chat, I've got this establishes trust in the community and it builds good connections with the city council.
Okay, thank you. What else? What are some other benefits for your church to engage the community? I want to share a couple things with you. Number one, it clarifies your congregational purpose and identity. That's a great thing. When you hear about what your community needs are, what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, and you begin to discern how you might be the best partner and neighbor you can be, it will force you to think about your identity. It creates congregational relevance and vitality. You want to provide programs that people need, not just what you think they need, right? You want to foster relationships. The church doesn't have all the resources, but God provides us with all the resources. And sometimes those are in the relationships in your neighborhoods, in the organizations near your church, at your city-wide level or state level. There's some partnerships. And yes, even within your church, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. It gives you an opportunity to represent Christ through mission and social engagement. Some people will never meet the Christ you read about, but they might understand Christ through your hands and through your feet and through your heart. It makes the word come alive, right? It's one thing to engage in orthodoxy, what the sacred text says, or how our polity says we engage a community, but it's another thing to see that ministry in praxis, orthopraxis, see you doing it in real time and in real places. It helps you understand needs. I heard Cheryl say that it will help you also understand the successes in your community and maybe some opportunities or challenges, the strengths and weaknesses. Identify psychological boundaries that you might want to hone a ministry around, understand how power is used to impact people and prevent human flourishing, and how power is used to benefit some and not other. Understand the resources. A church that does not understand the resources available to their community is a church that's building walls. So you have to understand the resources that are available. Let's talk about some strategies. Many of you all, I don't want to bore you because some of this work is just kind of what we do as leaders in a church. I want to look at three approaches. One is quantitative. That's where you get statistical analysis, numerical data, used for the purpose of proving something, planning something, possibilities, predicting output, and sometimes outcomes. My boss likes to use the word scalable, right? This is the way to see if you can take something to the next level. Can you have a greater impact? You can at least measure the numbers, right? This is data usually collected by surveys, tests, experiments, data sets to show scope and scale possibilities. So many of us do this on a regular basis in local congregations. You look at budgets, you look at giving units, you look at number of people, but I want to encourage you to think about the families in your community. How many families have children and youth in the community? You know, how many people are being served by the food pantry, and how many are being encouraged to find new employment, being encouraged to find new resources so that they don't have to keep coming, right? How many people are you serving? And I like to call it, how many people are you sending them to the next phase of their lives? How many shelter beds are available in the community? How many after school programs are offered? Qualitative research typically involves output. You're looking at behavioral patterns, complexity, culture, through observation, through history. This is data that's collected by interviews and stories and photos, experiences, case studies, and community forums, town halls. This kind of data help congregation know their neighbors, plan and clarify their mission and possibilities. It's like understanding your practical ecclesiology, right? What do the programs that we engage every day of our week, how's it really impacting our members, and how is it really impacting our community? This kind of data focuses on the concerns of your neighborhood and your community and how you are making a difference or how your faith is making a difference. A couple of things I want to share is that one of the things that I've used throughout my vocation and career is kind of the mix model. And that is the model that says we want qualitative data, we want quantitative data because we learn something from it all. And it gives us a broader perspective of how we ought to be in community and how we ought to impact community. So there's some strategies that I think you should think about. Demographic analysis, you can find this everywhere pretty much. That's the data around populations. That's the data that you could find that speaks to poverty rates, that speaks to free and reduced lunch, that speaks to some of the ways in which subsets are collected within populations, right? And then when you start talking about community asset mapping, some of that includes things like, what community programming is available, um, what health and medical institutions are present, and you can get numerical data from that as well. But I think from the asset piece, you're looking for strengths in the community. You want to know what kind of businesses are there. You want to know what faith traditions are there and what they're doing. You want to know what kind of businesses are there. Are there really good healthy food and nutrition places available? Or is it all fast food? You want to kind of think about what strengths are there. So you got the demographic analysis, and then you want to start kind of mapping out the strengths in the community, who's there, and what they're doing to contribute to human flourishing. And then there's a part of the map you want to also acknowledge what is missing. And those opportunities might create a place for ministry innovation. Congregational asset mapping is important because when you engage in research, you want to know what strengths you have. You want to know who your people are, what connections they have that can be leveraged on behalf of the ministry and on behalf of the community. You want to know who they're connected to. And if you have members who live in the community, you not only want to know their strengths and their giftings and their talents, but you want to also know uh, who are they in relationship with. And so when you go out to engage in community research, you'll get some sense of the culture, the norms, the traditions, the community celebrations, and more. You'll get some idea of what's happening in community. So the fourth thing I recommend is do some cultural analysis, right? Some analysis around what people value. How does race play a role? I believe University of Kansas Community Toolbox and its publication titled Cultural Competence and Spirituality and Community Building. It refers to a culture as a group of community that shares common experiences that shape how its members understand the world. And those experiences, in my experience or in my vocation, seem to shape how people view themselves and view the world, what they value. It's impacted by history, present realities, humor, their hopes, their loyalties, their worries, their fears. You want to know how people see themselves in the broader society. And one of the benefits of that, you all, is that it enabled congregations to develop ministry activities and uh, partnerships within their local context to foster unity. You might learn that there's some equity issues. You could be a part of creating equity within the community. It would also help you understand subgroups because if we're called to be a church for all, we have to understand where people and what people experience, where they live and what people experience in their day-to-day going. The final thing I want to share before I invite our guests to share with us is the fifth strategy is ethnography. This is one that I love the most. It is not better, it just provides a different way of engaging community. The art of immersing oneself in a place or community long enough to see, hear, feel, and understand its unique rhythms, right? For me, it's the way of paying attention to where hope emerges. I love what Jasmine Rubio at the Duke Divinity School said in her publication on the hope and ethnography. She says it's a way of listening deeply to community from a perspective of care and empathy rather than pretending to be unbiased, detached observers. It is not only a research method, but also a way of doing ministry. Learning to listen can transform the way we minister. So when I think about um, ethnography, here's some basic ways that the congregation can engage those. Very simple. Do a drive through, windshield view, just driving through. Take notice of what you see and what you don't see. Are there people walking dogs? Are there kids playing anywhere? Is there restaurants or people sitting on the curve? Uh, how are people driving in the community? Um, is the trash picked up? Are lights working on the streets? Look at city services or county services. See what's there for young people to do. Are there places for seniors to go and socialize? Are there places for entertainment, right? You want to kind of just look around. Are there community meetings that you should show up at and introduce yourself and learn from those folks who have been serving? Um, do you have surveys that you're willing to have the courage to hear from the community about what they need your church to be? Or the schools or the higher education institutions? Are you partnering with them? Is there a university extension program in the area, right? Those kinds of things will give you a sense of what's happening, what's not happening, and ministry possibilities that the church can engage to live out its call. If you have members that live in the community, encourage them to tell you, here are some of the things that are happening, right? And so you just want to kind of make sure you immerse yourself within the context where your church is located or where you do ministry. You may not have a building. So wherever ministry is taking place, immerse yourselves there. I want to stop now and pause to see if there are any brief comments, and then I want to introduce some colleagues in ministry. I call it ministry, but some colleagues and partners here in St. Louis that is currently living out some ethnography work right now. So I want to pause for any brief comments from anyone or questions.
Derek, the question came up in the chat of, is there a guide to access the mapping data that you shared?
Yes, I'll send you guys this PowerPoint. Okay. I did not lift up, I'll say more about on the back end, some places where you can go to access demographic data. I will share that before we end our call. Other questions or comments? Okay. I want to take a moment to introduce some friends, some colleagues, and community partners that I value and love, and the work that they're doing here in the St. Louis area. I want to introduce Hillary Broughton. She is the Associate Director for Community Engagement for the Institute of Clinical and Translational Sciences at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. She's also a part of, I believe, the Center for Community Health Partnership at Washington University. For the past 15 years, she has led several programs and funding programs to help bring medical researchers and local community members and organizations together for meaningful collaborative research. Prior to this, Hillary was a Community Health Peace Corps volunteer in rural Peru, where she worked with communities to build hygiene, nutrition, adolescent health program, and adolescent health programs. She's a graduate of Clemson University and holds a Master of Social Work from Washington University in St. Louis. I'm excited to have Hillary with us and the other friends who are part of that work. Hillary's going to introduce them, and she's going to come in her home way to kind of talk about what ethnography looks like in partnership with a research institution and a local congregation. All right, Hillary, you can take it away from here.
Thank you, Pastor Perkins, for setting the stage so beautifully and for this introduction. I will tell you that my Zoom just kicked me out, and in the event that that happens, when I'm talking here, I'm going to run out and I'm going to join in with my friend Kim out just right outside of my office. So I'll be right back if that case happens to us.
Okay.
Um, this is a partnership that I'm going to talk about today that is just near and dear to my heart. It's truly more of a friendship than a partnership at this point. But the work that we've done together in Centennial and the Fountain, around Centennial and the Fountain Park neighborhood and the Lewis Place neighborhood is really special. As Pastor Perkins mentioned, my role at Washington University School of Medicine is rooted in our Center for Community Health Partnership and Research. And the whole goal of our center is to essentially help medical researchers here at the university with community engagement, with a goal of making research more meaningful to the local communities around the university. So before I start with anything, I want to acknowledge the wonderful contributions of our partnership team. So everyone you see here has brought something special to the partnership. I know on the call today we have Cheryl, we have Pastor Perkins, who really helped this partnership grow legs before moving on to his national role. Kim, Robert, Dell. It's truly a team effort that I'm going to talk about today. So before I can dig in talking about the different research strategies and ethnographic work that we've done, I want to talk about the lead up to our partnership. So it really started in 2015, a decade ago, when I entered into this role at the university, and Cheryl Jackson was a member of the Community Advisory Board. It was by 2021, we developed a great relationship, and we were post-COVID. In Missouri, all of the COVID vaccines were really being routed to under-resourced rural neighborhoods. And so Cheryl mentioned at a board meeting and said, "Hey, we've got a vaccine desert right down the street from the university. Is there anything that you guys can do to help?" So she set up a meeting with the church leadership. And when we got there that day, it was actually this picture, it might be from that day, but the church leadership was all outside and doing food distribution. So neighbors were driving up and putting groceries into the back of cars. Naturally, our team said, well, we're going to do ministry side by side. So we all sat out there and we delivered food into vehicles and into people who were walking up until all the food was gone. And then we actually met and we decided what we were going to do with our COVID vaccine work. In that space, we were able to set up a consistent pop-up vaccine clinic in the church parking lot, which we continued through 2021, 2022, 2023, really through the worst of COVID in the St. Louis area. At that same time, the St. Louis American Heart Association issued a call for some community funding, and Centennial had a great health and food ministry, very robust. And we said, "Hey, let's go in for that. Let's see what you guys think." So we were, as university partners, able to help with sort of the grant writing and the combination of data, and then writing the grant. And then we were able to successfully get those initiatives funded for the next couple of years. In that same time, we had WashU medical students who were coming into our office and asking if there was different community engagement experiences that our center could offer. So we were able to bring some medical students, some really dedicated, committed medical students into this partnership. And then, we reached this point where we'd worked together so often, but we really were looking at each other and saying, what's next? And, in this 7-year time frame was really characterized by long-term trusting relationships that were rooted in transparency, shared values, and a meaningful vision. And that meaningful vision was improved health and wellness of the Fountain Park and Lewis Place communities surrounding Centennial Christian Church. So naturally we said, well, if, Centennial was ready to restructure some of their ministries. And so we said, okay, let's figure out how to ask the neighbors what they want. So we applied for and received a $10,000 partnership seed grant through the WashU Institute of Clinical and Translational Sciences. And we really went into it with not a very strong structured way of what we were going to do together, but instead saying, hey, our purpose in this is really to talk to residents of these two communities. So we decided on our budget, which was important for us, was participant compensation. We didn't want to extract the knowledge and lived experiences of the neighbors without compensating them for their time. So we put $6,000 of that $10,000 toward participant compensation. We knew that we wanted to culminate this work with a big event at the end, a community sharing event. So we put 1,500 towards food and sort of that event. And then we realized quickly just all of the logistics of coordination of a partnership really required some staff time. So one of our dedicated medical students we hired as a student worker on the project. So once we were awarded for this partnership work, first thing that we did is we set up a consistent monthly meeting schedule between July 24 and May of 25. And the first meeting we focused, and I'm going to come back into this a bit, but we focused on finalizing our partnership intention. That next step for us was defining our community of focus. One of the hardest things about community work is that we throw around this big term community, but without really focusing on the community that we mean in that moment, it's hard for us to move forward. We also needed as a team to discuss the different methods that we wanted to use in the neighborhood and the approach that we wanted to take to talking with neighbors. And then also time when these monthly meetings, we were finalizing the different methods, the timeline, the processes, and then the roles on both the university side and the church side. So I mentioned our finalized intention statement. So going into this, as I mentioned, we had a lot of transparency, a lot of trust in our partnership, but we needed to be able to articulate to the community what we were doing together. On the Wash U side, we'd sort of gotten ourselves a reputation as being known as the vaccine people. So all of a sudden, for us to come out and to be talking to neighbors about different things, we had to redefine what that looked like. At the same time, it was front and center that Centennial was doing a restructure of their ministries, and that we really needed these interviews to go forward. So what you're viewing here is our finalized intention statement of working together. This might seem just like a couple of easy sentences. However, to land in this spot took us, Pastor Perkins shaking his head, it took us several meetings, but it was important because we wanted language that was meaningful, and we wanted truthfully an intention that was meaningful, that we were all on the same page about what we were trying to do through this process. I talked about that medical student worker. I cannot give enough credit to Sophia for the work that she put into some of these pieces of our process. But we had really 3 different neighborhoods surrounding, as you can see here in the center is Fountain Park, with the church is just on one corner of the park. But we knew that there was people from the Academy Sherman Park area who were accessing Centennial's ministries, as well as the Lewis Park. So our first decision is, do we want to concentrate on all 3 of these neighborhoods? Do we want to concentrate on 2 of these neighborhoods, 1 of these neighborhoods? And then, as you can see, we had to look at it several different ways to kind of get a sense of the actual size that we were talking about. So when it came to define our methods, Pastor Perkins mentioned ethnography, and we decided, that was really a route that we wanted to take, because we wanted to immerse ourselves in this community where we all, on the church side and the university side, had really started to develop strong relationships, but we really truly wanted this opportunity to hear from people and to understand their lived experiences that would move the work forward. So we had a robust methods chart where we lined up about 6 different ethnographic methods and kind of went through the pros and cons of using them. We landed on 3 different things that we wanted to do. First one, unstructured resident interviews. The reason we wanted to do unstructured is because we wanted to make them as conversational as possible. For us, the first role was as really as listeners and as supporting Centennial instead of as researchers. So we took our formal research caps off in this moment. And then in terms of the small group discussion, we knew that we wanted to really hear louder from individuals who would be using or who would be accessing the church's ministries more. So we knew that we wanted to get together a group of unhoused individuals. We knew that we wanted to talk to neighborhood leaders, again, to really raise those assets and make sure we were aware of the assets in the surrounding communities. And then we also knew that youth voice was important, and it is often a voice that's left out of these sort of neighborhood level endeavors. And then our final method that we landed on was a community dissemination and open discussion event where we really brought in as many people from the neighborhoods as we could to talk about what we heard and where we were going to go next. So the interview portion of our work, we landed on that we wanted to do 40 resident interviews. The number was really defined by our budget. So together, the Centennial and WashU team landed on a set of interview questions together. We decided that we would do the interviews around the time that food ministry and health ministry actions were already going on. And it was important for us that our interview teams were a Centennial team member and a WashU team member, with one person actually doing the interview questions and the other um, doing note taking. The locations where we did these interviews, we did them on the street, we did them in the park, we did them in the church basement, we did them on the church library, we did them in people's homes, on their porches, and our office is actually off the WashU campus, but just a couple of blocks down the street from Centennial. So we did a few at our office as well. The interviews lasted about 45 to 60 minutes, and then we encouraged people, if they were interested, to allow us to take a photo as well. And then from these interviews, it was really a lot of word of mouth, but we recruited through people through relationships with the health and food ministry, people who had received services from our vaccine relationships, community champions who really know everyone on the block. And then we went to a neighborhood association meeting as well to share about what we were doing. And then everyone who did an interview received a $50 Visa gift card. Some of the different questions that we landed on, we wanted to learn about self as resident, the length of time in the neighborhood. What's your typical day like? What's changed since you moved here? Whether that was 3 months ago, whether that was 70 years ago. That was an interesting, fun question. And it was really fascinating just to take a moment to hear the history of these rich neighborhoods. And then we asked, what are the best things, the missing things, top concerns, key resources or assets. We wanted to make sure that people had a chance to map that out and to mention those. We wanted to know their perspective on the church and its role in the community. We wanted to know about a time where the community had worked together. And then we ended with an open-ended question of, in an ideal world, this would happen in my community. Here, this slide just shows a sample of the people we talked to. As I mentioned, it was really important that we heard from renters, from owners, from unhoused, from youth, from elderly. It was really an important exercise in making sure that we heard from diverse perspectives within the existing communities that we were working with. We continued with our monthly check-in meetings during this time. So every time that we did an interview, it got mapped onto our community map. So we wanted to see when we got together, where are our location gaps? We're not getting as many people from here, or we're not getting as many people from Lewis Place. We talked through what we were hearing. So some of that, sort of those preliminary conversations, that preliminary data that was coming out of it. And then we were also planning those small group discussions, which we called our chat and shoes. This takes us to May 16th of 2025, which many of you know is a devastating day in St. Louis and for Centennial Christian Church. This was our small group meeting with our unhoused neighbors, and it was a beautiful meeting. We sat around, we ate Jersey Mike sandwiches, and we talked about why we were doing this neighborhood assessment, and we talked to their voices most disconnected from their resources, and really sort of had them hone in on what the assets were that they were bringing to the neighborhood, as well as what they wanted to see in terms of ministries. This session was moderated by the late Miss Pat Pendleton, who died in the tornado that afternoon. And then later that afternoon, of course, Centennial faced devastating damage, as you can see from the picture here. I do want to highlight a really important thing that Pat said that afternoon. We all have gifts from God, and we all need to use those gifts to do something good. So naturally, this really interrupted our work plan, and our priorities shifted. We needed to be in Fountain Park and Lewis Place as relief and as support, as opposed to doing research. The assessment questions that we had framed didn't make sense anymore with the devastation. And simple as this, we needed to be sensitive to the experiences and loss and the trauma that we were facing. So we made a decision to pause for 6 months and then reevaluate, which brings us to really close to where we are right now. But during that 6 months, we did look through those other interviews and we pulled out some of the key takeaways that we'd heard from the residents that we talked to. Big things that came up over and over again were that youth needed something to do, especially after school. Workforce training and skills like construction were very desired by young adults, especially within like the unhoused and the unstably housed. Improved communication channels between neighborhood groups, so owners, renters, and unhoused would be really good. And we heard this from owners, we heard this from unhoused, and that was really an interesting theme that came out. Almost everyone that talked about working together talked about the events in the park that brought people together. So that park is really a key community asset that came out to the top of this. And then there's a widespread desire to commit time and energy into these communities. It didn't matter if it was somebody who'd lived in Fountain Park for 70 years or somebody who was unhoused and had been on the streets in Fountain Park for 2 months. You could tell that there was just sort of that time, that energy around committing to the neighborhood. So now that takes us to about 6 months post tornado, and we've made a decision. We're not going to attempt to do any of the small groups, but instead we're going to take what's left of the funding and really frame it into a positive purpose. So finding what are those positive things that came out of devastation that happened in the neighborhood? What are the endearing stories of neighbors helping neighbors during tornado? What's something you want people to know about your neighborhood today? Remembering Centennial as it was, and also remembering Miss Pat. And then what do you want Centennial to keep in mind as they plan to rebuild? We'll have a final community sharing walk in the park in April where we share this back, and then we'll kind of flip back to our original purpose of sharing back with the community and further discussion. So leaving you with just a final few thoughts, specifically from my perspective as a church partner, a university church partner, at Washington University in St. Louis, not speaking for every university nationwide, but I know medical researchers, health researchers that are eager and hungry to do community engaged research, and they want good community partners. There is so much jealousy in this university among what we've created with Centennial, and it's really something that could be replicated nationwide. There's also students that are really hungry for community engagement experiences and roles. So this is actually Sophia down here with Miss Pat and Mr. Harry. But Sophia, she wants to be a doctor who works in under-resourced areas, and it was incredibly important to her to have a role that fit this purpose, and really gave her a new spin on why she wants to be a medical doctor. This work's been able to do that. I also want to note that that universities have community advisory boards that are constantly looking for members that are really those roles are to connect the dots between what's going on in the community and what's going on in the university and what different opportunities are. We never would have had this partnership if it wasn't for Cheryl sitting on that community advisory board and making that connect. In terms of ministry work, food and health go hand in hand. So really that's been a key part of us is not trying to silo the ministries, but working together and allowing us to do more with by combining. This has been, and this entire partnership from start to finish has been an experience in, capacity building on both sides and learning and leaning into each other's strengths and in having fun together, which is very key for us. And then just to note, everything we do is in loving memory of Miss Pat, and I'm providing my contact information below. Cheryl, I wonder if you might, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I wondered if Cheryl might be able to say some words from the Centennial perspective.
Sure, you have 2 minutes. That'll give me 2 minutes to close out. Cheryl, talk a little bit about some of the benefits of this ethnography work for the congregation.
The benefit has been that sometimes when you are not necessarily comfortable with a group of people, when you start working with them, they become they trust you and you start to trust them. Then you're much more able to, like I'll never forget, I had a woman with a evaluation of like 400 in her glucose, And we got a chance to talk. We got a chance to give her the resources and have her take some control of her health history. We got her in, her evaluation started to go down. And then you look at the people and you feeling like they start to trust you, you trust them. The word goes out, like I said before, that the other churches saw what we were doing and they started inviting us to their churches. And it starts to spread. And so I would hope that also one day federally qualified health centers get involved. And I do know one that's involved. And so it starts to spread and it starts to give people resources that they don't understand that they're already out there. And it just widens your what you do in the community, not just one, but it widens what you're doing. It also opens up resources, health resources. And so it just like Hillary was saying, it starts to be fun, and but then it also starts to bring people in and maybe not think your community is what you thought before. So I think that's been a really important part.
Girl, can I put something in context for the group?
Sure.
This congregation is probably at its best about 140 people, has a robust health and food ministry. Cheryl is a practitioner, and so the church has the ability to engage ministry by providing physicals, providing all partners for physicals, providing all kinds of testing to make sure that people are well on the spot, can refer people, put them in a Uber or Lyft to get them to their next place, to the doctor, and all of that. So basically, doing this ethnography work creates ministry opportunities.
Mhm.
And it ignites new passion, new growth. I mean, this church has experienced major growth as a result of this community kind of research and community engagement kind of activity. So that's why I wanted us to talk about this because there are opportunities right under your nose for how you might engage your ministry in new, innovative, and relevant ways. You can change lives right outside your doors if you engage, develop relationships, learn, hear what people want or need, and figure out what partnerships you need to establish. Um, the gospel and the good news of the gospel is only as good as our heart, our hands, and our feet. And we must take it from our doorsteps to the ends of the earth. I know we're out of time. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to commit to sending you the PowerPoint. We will also have a conversational guide that you can go back to your leaders, have Bible studies, going to have all the questions. You'll find that that's going to be uploaded within a week or two to kind of extend this conversation back into your local context. But I want to just share this. Some of the data, number one, Pew Research is a good place to go. The Barna Group is a good place to go for research. U.S. Census, your local and state public health agencies. They have all of the data, and you can typically click on the area that you're interested in if you want to learn about health. The Association of Religious Data Archives. You want to learn what other faith groups are in your community, what they're doing, what people think about faith. That's a great place. University extension programs and university research departments are great places to gain information and to create partnership. The CDC, National Vital Statistics System, real simple. That's a good one to just get in there and figure out what's available to you about your neighborhood. FBI crime data, explore the CDE. If you want to get involved in some criminal justice things, that's a great place to go. Don't forget your local police department. They have the data around the ways in which your community are harming or helping themselves, right? The Children's Defense Fund, State of America Children's Report. Anything you want to know about child advocacy, child welfare, all of that in your community, that's a great place to go. The Lilly School of Philanthropy, the Human Index, wonderful resource to get some data about what is happening in your world. The Bureau of Justice Statistics. You want to look at justice matters across our nation? That'll be a great place. The Nextdoor app. We're living in a time, you all, where people are not trusting authority and figures and people who are shaping views and values. Well, the Nextdoor app is simply common people talking about their neighborhood. You might want to hear what common folk, your neighbors, are saying about your neighborhood. Local school districts, and then there's another site. I think there's a cost to this one. Mission Insight. There's a cost, but that will give you some idea about what's happening within your community as well. So I want to say we're out of time.
Derek, the question also came up, would Centennial and Washington University be willing to share their interview questions that they came up with?
Hillary, how do you guys feel about that? Maybe get permission from Centennial folks, and then if you would get back with me, maybe you can share your slide if you guys are open, and if they're open to sharing those interview
Certainly.
questions,
Yep.
let me know, and then I can get it back to everybody who's attended here today.
Certainly.
So next steps, I want to charge you or challenge you by the end of March 2026. I want you to consider doing two of the following things that I'm going to mention. Number one, first option, it's a menu. Just choose something off. Do a congregational asset map. Just your congregation, a congregational asset map, where you guys can have some activities that would allow members of your church to share their personal interests, their talents, their passions, their strengths, their affiliations, connections, and key relationships. I'll send this out in the PowerPoint as well. Number two, plan an open house activity, just like the ones your children school have for you. Think about an open house. What would it mean to have an open house for the church? And that is to talk about your church to the wider community. Bring them in, give people a tour, talk about your ministries, talk about what you hope to do, what you're thinking about doing, and what you hope to learn from your community so that you can do it better. Establish an activity and team to engage a few research strategies, such as a walkthrough, drive-through, go to the neighborhood association gathering, meet some folks, meet a new business owner, meet a new key stakeholder in the community, right? Meet someone. Get out there and get to know who your partners could be. Find out what other churches are doing in your area. If you can pick one of those, oh, I forgot one. Meet a new family.
Mm.
Find a new family that you have not met before within your local community. Pick two of those by March 2026. Just two. And see if that will get you to thinking about the ways in which God might be calling you and your church to engage your local community today, not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, not pre-COVID, not even in the immediate right after COVID, the height of the pandemic. No, today. Figure out what way God is calling you all to engage your community today. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Hillary and team. I think I saw Robert and Kim, Cheryl and Dale. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you, Aaron, for helping me. because it's hard to pay attention to these kinds of things and look at notes and look at PowerPoints. And Zoom does not allow you to see anybody's comments while you are sharing your presentation. And thank you to all of you. Thank you to my boss who's here. Chris, would you like to say something before we?
Nah, I'm good. I'm good. It's been great. But thank you for letting me just sit in and be a part of it.
Sure. I will be sending out a evaluation. Be honest in the evaluation. One thing that we're wrestling with is time. It was geared toward 1 hour, and each session we have not been able to do it in an hour. It's been like an hour and 15 minutes. But give me some feedback, and again, within the next couple of days, you will see the next level for you to do a follow up and some study, some Bible study with your congregation. And I'll send an evaluation. If you could support me by completing that evaluation, it help me do my work better. Thank you so much. I hope that you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Advent season. Continue to have a wonderful Advent season and a blessed Christmas. Thank you so much.